Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is a little different, but deeply connected to the work that I do as a pelvic floor physical therapist. In my practice, I see every day how emotional health and physical health are connected. Stress, trauma, and unhealthy relationship patterns can show up in the whole body in very real ways, affecting pelvic health, intimacy, and overall our sense of well-being. That's why I'm so excited to be joined by Melissa Roberts today, founder of Gumball Love. Melissa helps people recognize and break free from toxic relationship cycles so that you can experience true, lasting love. We're going to talk about what Gumball Love really means, how these patterns affect your mind and body, and how to step into the kind of relationships that nourish every part of you. Enjoy. For listeners who are new to your work, can you explain what Gumball Love means and how it helps people understand relationships, unhealthy relationships?
Yeah, so first I have to address why there's a gumball machine attached to relationships. So the Gumball Love really started from a statement that is a long story, but it was every time he puts in a quarter, you give him a gumball, stop giving him gumballs. That stuck with me, and that led to creating this whole concept over 15 plus years of the transactional nature of attention seeking people versus connection seeking people. So that is the basically the definition of what Gumball Love is. It's basically understanding transactional relationships. And if you are investing in romantically, specifically, you're investing in a romantic relationship that it seems great, it feels good, but it doesn't feel safe. That's probably the number one sign that you're possibly in a relationship where you are feeding him the gumball and he feels good, and for a while, you can kind of live off his reaction, but then things start to feel off and you're always managing it. It's hot, it's cold, it's up and down. You're getting that roller coaster feel. And this can go on for the first few days, weeks, months, or sometimes people can even be in a marriage where they're always feeling like they are responsible for managing the emotions of the man or the woman, because this goes both ways. I help mostly women, but this is not a gender specific concept. So it's kind of a long explanation,
No,
but
that's
yes.
perfect. It's like that eggshell feeling of like something's not quite right, but I can't quite pinpoint it.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Or
that's
it can be,
validation.
yes. And or it can be to the far extreme. It can be like, I know everything's wrong, but I'm still drawn to this person and I can't figure out why.
Okay. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point. So in my work as a pelvic floor physical therapist, I know how much stress and relationship challenges can really show up physically. How have you seen sort of these toxic relationship patterns impact people's personal, or excuse me, impact their emotional and even their physical health?
Yes. Okay. So when you are obsessing over a relationship, there's that constant anxiety. So that's probably like the anxiety, racing thoughts. You're constantly checking, you're feeling confused. So this is spiking your cortisol and it's dropping off. So there's a lot of panic and anxiety, and you're just always on edge. Or even it doesn't have to be a constant thing, but even if it's weekly, where you're always trying to anticipate his response and you don't know what's coming next, and you always feel like you're just on the verge of, is he going to leave, or is he going to get upset, or what's going to happen if I say this, or we have this function coming up, how do I approach it? All of those things are going to make you feel confused or disoriented. So physically, you get the tight chest, trouble sleeping, digestive issues. I mean, as I was researching this, I was thinking I had all of these things because this is really, I am patient number one. I had all of these things where I would obsess over these guys. I couldn't figure out why. And all of it, digestive issues is probably the one thing that had the most long-term effect, is because when your body thinks it's in fight or flight, digestion is the first thing to go, which, as a side note, I always want to remind people that is what butterflies are. Butterflies are the momentary time where your body goes, oh my God, something exciting or scary is happening. So we're not going to digest food. But it's so instantaneous that you just feel that little ping in your stomach. So it doesn't mean it's a terrible guy. It just means your body's like, ooh, exciting or nervous or scared. So digestion just takes a second to like pause and we get the butterfly feeling. But if you're doing that on a regular basis, the butterfly feeling goes away and then it becomes anxiety and stress, which compounds over time, as we all know, and it turns into many different things I'm sure that you see in your office. So,
Right. Yeah, when we talk about like the biggest thing we talk about in my office is regulating the nervous system, going from the sympathetic where it's fight or flight, or even, it, like you said in the beginning stages, it's sort of the butterflies. But it's actually, yeah, you're in fight or flight. And the
mhm,
opposite of that is rest and digest, right? So
yes.
when we're in fight or flight, our breathing does become shallow. And when our breathing becomes shallow, we don't breathe with our diaphragm, and then our pelvic floor gets involved and, might become a little overactive. And
Mhm,
it doesn't always lead to any necessarily, pelvic floor problems necessarily. But over the long term, when we're talking about issues in relationships, when we get, later sort of in the more kind of chronic areas of this, it can definitely contribute to pelvic floor dysfunction. And then
mhm,
people wonder why, their sort of physical intimacy declines.
mhm.
That piece, that fight or flight piece is a huge component of that actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are common signs that someone might be in a gumball relationship? And why is this often hard to see? Like why are the patterns so hard to see when you're in it?
Because when you think about a transaction and you think about it in the gumball machine, there's the person who is giving the gumball and there's the person that's receiving the gumball. And the person who is getting the gumball is addicted to the hit that they get from all the flavors of attention, which I have 8 flavors of attention. So we can get into that later, or I have lots of podcasts on that. But uh, the person who's giving the gumball gets addicted to the hope of what's going to happen with that relationship. So hope turns into fantasy. And that's your sign. I forgot your question. Sorry. I just want to make sure I'm staying on track. Because you
That's
said, what are
okay.
the
No,
signs
just
that you're in a gumball relationship?
yeah.
Yes. Okay. So if you're in a gumball relationship, then you are addicted to the hope of what's going to happen. So there's always this constant like the next transaction is going to lead to something better. And so that's your first sign that you're hoping versus just being. And that hope can become addictive. Longing can become addictive. And we don't realize that we're getting into this process or we're getting into this cycle a lot of times until we're already in love, which is the entire reason why we're sitting here today, because I got so sick of this. I didn't understand what was happening, but I said, I've got to figure out how to see these signs before I fall in love with the guy. Because once you fall in love, you know his grandma, you understand his past. It's like, it's so hard to then even if you hear logical information, you're already in the loop. And so this is really about identifying, am I in this loop? Am I getting addicted to someone who gives me just enough to keep the hope alive? And so it's a relationship that has stops and starts. It feels intoxicating at times, but the lows can be gut wrenching. They can be very dramatic. They can be toxic fights, or they can be stonewalling, or you can be in a he cheated on you or you think he's cheating on you. Lots of variables, but it never feels steady. And a lot of people will say, well, real love will feel boring and this toxic roller coaster is what's exciting, and people think they're going to have a hard time breaking away from that. But yes, if you went right from toxic into a steady normal guy, that might feel drastic. But once you can go through this process and understand what's happening, suddenly the highs and lows and the roller coaster, that's what will feel boring to you. And actually a more steady and thriving love, a true love relationship, is going to be so much more fulfilling to you. And you'll look back and say, how did I ever do that? That's exhausting. It won't feel like, oh my God, that was the high, the chemistry, the amazing thing. I missed that. you're not going to miss it. But we're drawn to it without realizing it because those high highs feel like they're going to lead. Like we have that fantasy, this is going to lead to something amazing and we're just going to stand this mountaintop forever. So we kind of have this, we have that perpetual hope that keeps cycling. And then on the other side, it's like you might say, hey, I'm not having those high highs anymore. This is like, I'm feeling like no matter what I do, it's not enough. I feel like there's just always something missing. They always want something I can't give. So you either feel like you're too much or you're not enough. And it just feels like you can't get to that place where you feel safe, where you can relax and where you can just enjoy your relationship.
So can we just quickly run through the gumball flavors? Just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that was probably my best discovery in this whole process because it's one thing to say, okay, so if you're in a transactional relationship, and it doesn't mean there isn't love, because I can look back at all the gumball relationships I was in. I definitely felt love. They may have felt love for me, but why isn't it working? And it's not working because they are not wired to feel safe being seen. They're not wired to feel safe in intimacy. So, what we keep doing without realizing it is we're giving them a hit to regulate their nervous system. So, you just talked about we have to have a regulated nervous system. But if we don't, essentially what we're doing with guys that aren't ready for intimacy is instead of realizing this guy may not be able to sustain it, we start regulating his nervous system by doing 8 things. So the 8 flavors, because I can go on for all the 8 flavors, but the first one is sex. We can be really close to somebody with sex, but have no intimacy. So he can get all the benefits of being with you, being close to you, but he may not know you and you may not know him. So when we have sex with a guy, this is probably the biggest one. So we'll stay here for a second. We have sex with a guy, our oxytocin as women goes way up. His doesn't. For a guy to feel bonded to you, he needs vasopressin. But vasopressin doesn't release until he feels truly bonded, where he wants to protect you, like he's feeling that safe feeling. Now, what all the coaches say is, now you just need to give him space, and then that will happen. But it doesn't. Only certain guys will be able to release vasopressin. So you want to think of vasopressin as like a locked safe that will unlock when he gets to that point where he feels like this is the girl. But a lot of guys can't get there ever. So they stay in a dopamine, they stay addicted to dopamine and they never get to the vasopressin. Meanwhile, when you're giving him those gumballs, you're feeding, you're getting him high, you're having sex, you're laughing at his jokes, you're doing all the things, he's getting high off of dopamine, which is then pushing your oxytocin higher. So you're thinking, this is the one. I actually have a chart that I'm making right now where it literally a woman will feel like she's like 75% there in terms of this is it, I'm committed, this has to be the one. And his levels can be at 10%. It's like, it's such a drastic difference where she's like, oh my God, I'm so in love. Add fantasy to where she's hoping for it and thinking about it all the time, then she's already there. She's already at, this is the guy, this is my husband, this has to be the one. And then add on all the Hallmark and Lifetime movies that we have in our heads. I mean, it doesn't end. So we can really be primed to assume, and all of all the biology, it compounds it. So my process is about helping you recognize when you actually have a guy that can actually sustain intimacy. So what does that actually mean? He's the kind of guy that can be seen, that's actually going to attach to you. So vasopressin means he's attaching to you, he's bonding to you. But some guys aren't doing that. And all the waiting and all the, playing hard to get, that does not produce vasopressin. So I think that's like the news alert here. Vasopressin does not get produced by playing any specific game. All you're doing is playing a dopamine game, which can keep the wrong type of guy interested. And it will give you the illusion that he's getting committed, but he's not actually doing it. So when he's feeling that resistance to connecting with you, these are where the flavors come in. So it either comes in with he changes the subject to sex, or he picks a fight. Here you're like all in your oxytocin high, and then all of a sudden he picks a fight and you're like, what did I do wrong? Oh my God, we're in a fight. Because that's his way of breaking that tension. He doesn't feel comfortable really having you see him. Because let's face it, when you fall in love, you're really seeing each other. And seeing actually includes eye contact. So that's one of the things that guys that can't access that vasopressin, they'll have a hard time really making consistent eye contact and looking you deeply in the eyes and being able to actually let you see him. So then there's my other flavor called entertain me, where he might get a little immature. He might get fidgety. He might be like the kind of guy that looks like he's, ADD, where he just can't ever be happy just sitting and watching a show. Or can he sit in the same room with you and not bug you? Like he's got this, like, he needs to be entertained all the time. So that's another way that he's soothing or regulating his nervous system. He's uncomfortable with intimacy.
Or what
And
about the guy for entertain me? What about somebody who just kind of like sits in a corner and you feel this crazy pull to like do backflips to to kind of
oh
like
yeah,
get a reaction out of them or make them feel more comfortable? Like it's this weird pull.
yes, that's what I call the troll in the corner. He's the guy, and you're like, oh, I want you to meet my family or my friends. And you take him somewhere, and then he's on his phone kind of by himself. And you're like, oh God, I'm like, my friends are going to think he's a weirdo. Like, what's going on? You're like, hey, what are you doing? And you want to come over and talk to so and so? And all of a sudden he gets kind of grumpy or weird, and you're like, I don't know what's going on. And that brings up, so there's your anxiety coming back again. It's like all of that tension in your body because what you don't realize is when you give the gumball, you're regulating his nervous system. And that's what, like, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. That book, which was founded in zero research, told you that you're from a different planet. And this is how guys are. So when he does this, then you're responsible for regulating it. So here, all of us in our 40s and 50s, especially like 40s, 50s, 60s, we grew up thinking it was our job to take care of the troll in the corner. That's okay, come join us. And that's not normal. That is not a guy that is in a healthy mental state. But all of this literature and Hollywood has taught us that that guy will eventually come around. You just got to say and do the right thing. And so the entire dating industry is full of tips, tricks, and hard to get feminine energy. What can I do to make that guy respond? But you cannot change his nervous system. You cannot heal his wounds. So when he wants the gumball, this is the external manifestation of a wound that is far too deep for you to heal, but it keeps giving you the hope that he's just going to come around if I just do this. So the other flavor is what I call compete for me, where at the root, it's jealousy. So it could be he's dating somebody or he's cheating on you, or he just talks about other women. But whatever it is, you feel jealous. There could be an actual woman in the picture, or if it's a guy, it could be, or if it's reverse, it could be another guy in the picture. But regardless, this concept is not gender specific. It doesn't matter what your orientation is. So you can literally get any gender out of your mind. This is literally, it's going to be, there's a gumball giver and there's a gumball receiver. And usually these are the two people that come together. If you have two gumball receivers, that's often your celebrity romance where both of them want the gumball. And that's why it ends, because they're both takers. And then it fizzles out so quickly because you have to have that giver that's willing to keep that cycle going. So often they'll do it with jealousy. So you're on this high, and all of a sudden he's like, well, I just talked to my ex and I don't know, we're trying to figure things out. And then you're in that mess. Now you're analyzing the relationship with his ex.
Or even
And
something more benign, like I feel like this girl at the office has a crush on me. Isn't that crazy? Like
mhm,
something like
mhm,
that, where it seems like,
totally.
okay, but it's a bid for attention, right?
Yes. And then you're thinking, who's the girl? Then you're trying to find her Instagram or her Facebook. Like, who's this girl at the office? What does she look like? Why is he talking about her? He could be flirting with a waitress. Yes, it's those little things that help him feel better in the moment. So all that is it's actually the bid for dopamine, right? He's trying to give himself that dopamine fix. Meanwhile, we're analyzing, what did I do wrong? And this is where I help clients differentiate do you have a guy that's actually working to connect with you, or is he dopamine addicted and he doesn't realize it? Because a lot of these guys, most of them don't realize it. And then they get thrown in, oh, he's a narcissist, which narcissists are very, very few people are actual narcissists. You want to actually think, does this person have zero empathy? Like they never have empathy? Like you want to make sure we don't just throw them all in there. But I feel like Gumball Love gives that middle, it gives like, this is like that middle where they're not narcissistic, but they can be very dopamine addicted. So this is a spectrum too. Sometimes you have somebody that, yeah, they might want the gumball occasionally, but for the most part, they're pretty decent. So you might see it at, at varying levels. This is why I have a quiz online. You can go to gumballlove.com, take the quiz and see, okay, where is this person on the spectrum? How addicted to dopamine are they? So I can get a feel for it. The other ones are pity me, which is someone who plays the victim. So you are trying to address something and they stonewall, they give you silent treatment, they tell you you don't understand everything I'm going through. So that's a whole other
That's
podcast, as
a
we
whole
say.
other pocket. We just do.
So
Yeah.
yeah. And then there's chase me. So the guy that pulls away, everything's going great, then his responses become less. Every woman on the planet has experienced this where it's like my sister and I used to say there's a tremor in the force. Like, what's going on? You feel it. You could show somebody your phone, like, does this look weird? And they're like, no, everything looks fine. But something's off. And that's immediately when I used to feel like before I had the Gumball Love concept, I used to feel like the power shifted and all of a sudden I felt like I was in pursuit and I hated that feeling. So then other girls would be like, well, no, you've got to shift the power and you got to make him chase you. So everybody thinks this is about making a man chase you, and they're all wrong. I could prove it to you. I can science back it. I have spent over almost 2 decades researching this. And I can assure you, you do not have to create a chase. Because if you have to create a chase, what you're saying is, I'm not interesting enough to get to know. I don't have enough layers and depth. So I have to create games to make myself more interesting. There's only one type of guy you have to do that for, and that's a dopamine addict. You have to do that for the dopamine addict because he's not interested in the layers of people in general. He's interested in getting the dopamine hit. So you can relax and know that there is a guy that will actually still be interested. He won't, you could call it a chase, but he's really just going to pursue because there's a genuine curiosity and interest in you for who you are. And that's what sustains long term because nobody can keep this dopamine game going because eventually, and we could get into the science, I'll do more podcasts on this on my own podcast, but there's a limit to how long that dopamine high can really sustain. And then he starts to get bored, which can be when the chase happens, right? Or when you feel like, oh God, he wants me to chase him because now he's responding differently. So, and the last one is convince me, where he's skeptical. I don't know if I want to be in a relationship, or he just kind of is a doubter of everything you say. So you kind of feel like you're dumb, or you talk about your work and he's like, you're into that, or somebody said that. Like you get that, it's like a disapproving look. So the high that he wants is you seeking his approval. You're putting him on that pedestal. So that's his dopamine hit of you working to convince him, no, this actually is a good idea, or no, we should be in a relationship because, we have such a great thing. Like anytime you're convincing and you're doing that repeatedly, that's when you can start to see, okay, this isn't about him actually having doubts. This is about I'm back in the loop. So that's really what this is identifying, am I in this loop where I'm just feeding dopamine, or am I actually connecting with someone and we're building a bond and I'm not riding those highs and lows?
Right. It's that person that's like, well, monogamy is not even a real
Right.
thing. And, like, are humans even supposed to be, like, and then you're trying
Yes.
to like convince them. But you actually skipped my favorite one, which is
Oh,
idolize me.
that's right. I'm sorry. I did skip. So yes, idolize me. Um, I know I'm trying to get through them so fast. So idolize me, it's very nuanced because idolize me can look like the typical narcissist where they want to be the center of attention, but not every idolize me wants to actually be the center of attention. Sometimes they want to, sometimes not. So it could be the guy that tells the funny jokes and he's like if you go out with him, you sort of compete for his attention because he's moving around the room and everybody's talking to him and you can kind of sort of feel like the girl that's like following him and smiling because he's 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 got the whole room captivated and he moves around in the room and he needs all that feedback from all those people. Or an idolize me can be a computer programmer that's just really obsessed with clothes and the kind of car he has and he's like really meticulous about everything. So it's if I put it in a nutshell, it doesn't matter what it is, it just matters how it looks. So he likes for people to think that he's cool, he's popular, he has the best car, he is the smartest guy. So my husband and I always are like, we'll get to a person where they take over the conversation and they'll be like, I'll give you a perfect example. We were in England and we love grounding where you put your feet on the ground and you connect with the earth and it's like it helps your nervous system, right?
Mhm.
So I'm sitting in London and my husband was somewhere else and this guy walks by, he's walking with another guy and he said, "I'm getting my grounding in today. Do you know about grounding?" And the guy goes, "No, I don't." He goes, "You know what? I just feel sorry for people that don't know what grounding is and they just go around their whole lives and they don't even know what it is." And I was like, "Oh my God, you're just giving a poor guy a lecture." And he was just like, "Tell me about grounding."
Yeah.
And so I was like, ugh, idolize me. I've known about grounding for years and I feel sorry for you that you don't know about grounding. It was just like, oh, get over yourself, buddy, and just give him the information. So it can be like that too, where the person is like, hogging the dinner party and they know everything and oh yeah, I went there. I can't talk about your vacation because they're going to tell you where they went when they went to that same place or
Mm.
why, yeah, they thought about going there, but they decided to go here instead. So it can take many different forms, but you'll get the vibe of it. And so this is often excused on dates. Women will be like, well, guys just like to show off on dates. So they kind of tend to brag about
Right. They're
themselves. No.
advertising. They're taught to
Yeah.
advertise themselves.
Right. Yeah. So they'll do that. Now, it doesn't mean if they're doing it that they're just immediately a transactional gumball and they're, not worth your time. It's just stuff that you start to note, like, okay, so am I able to tell a story and not get it hijacked? Is he the victim in all of his relationship stories? Is he maybe a little bit argumentative? I mean, have you ever like been texting a guy you've met him online, you haven't even met in person, and you're already kind of in a fight, and you're like, this is sort of an argument, but I'm still trying to be flirty. But what's happening here? That's often a fight me, convince me situation that's happening already because they can't help it. And you're going to start to see where do they like their dopamine? That's why this is so hard to figure out because there's 8 flavors of attention and there's 40,300 320 different orders that those flavors can appear. So if you have 8 flavors, a person who leads with convince me could also they could be a convince me, fight me. They could be a convince me, idolize me. So, and then they all stack in order of severity. So if you take the quiz, it'll be like, you'll see what they lead with, but then you'll also see how those other flavors can kind of go into the mix. So it's sort of like a personality test, but each person is so different that the variance is why we are like, I swear I thought I found another good guy, but he feels like my ex now, but they're so different. So you could have that, you know, center of attention, idolize me guy one time, but then you can date a computer programmer who's super quiet and you think, or I laugh when girls are like, no more firefighters, that's it. Like, well,
Mhm.
or, they'll pick like a whole, like my Puerto Rican girls are like, no more Puerto Rican guys. It's like, it's not a race. It's not a job. It's this. It's like, is it attention seeking or not? So you don't have to eliminate your entire race or your entire religion or your entire gender. Some people are just like, I'm giving up because they think all men are like this.
Mhm.
And often relationship advice is usually only talking about gumball guys, how men are in dating. they're usually only talking about this loop and how to manage this loop over and over and over again. And you can attract them, you can entertain them, you can do all the flavors, but it's never ending. And but that's often what feeds the money when people are paying for advice. Some coaches know they're not solving the problem, and some coaches are convinced that this is the way it is. And so when they're coaching you, they really believe that this person can change, or that you can play hard to get and you can have feminine energy or black cat energy and it's going to work. Sometimes they truly believe it in their whole heart, and they are convinced that this is the only way. So I'm here to give that the hope that you can actually have a healthy relationship that doesn't make you do these things.
So how do we do that? Like, how do we get out of this loop of like if we've been dating, if we're recognizing ourselves in these patterns when you're speaking about them, how do we switch rails? How do we go in a more healthy direction?
Yeah. So the first thing you have to do is realize you're in it. And most people, that's the first step, right? You have to say, okay, I realize I'm in it. And a lot of people will watch this and they'll resist it. Some people have maybe already shut it off because it's like, I can't listen to this. It's too real, because you want to hold on to a certain guy, right? There's this desire, like, I can't abandon this. This is my guy. It has to be my guy. I get it. Um, so there's a process in getting to a point where you're like, okay, I want the real thing. I'm tired of doing this. I'm turning 40, I'm turning 50, I'm turning 60, whatever it is, wherever you are in your life, you get to that point, you're like, okay, I recognize myself in this cycle. And that recognition is your first step. And then getting out of it is the first step you can take is take the quiz. Because if you take the quiz, you're going to start to understand these behaviors. So recognizing it, understanding the behaviors, and then, depending on where you are, then that's where you can hire a coach to help you and get that accountability to stay on track, because we are also addicted to giving the gumball. We are also addicted to feeding that cycle. And so there's work that we have to do to break that addiction. And this goes back to childhood, like everything, but it isn't about blaming your parents. It's about, or whatever, could be, may not be parents. It could be a first boyfriend that set this pattern in motion. Some people will say, Melissa, I had great parents. I don't really see this pattern in parents. I see it in the first guy that I had a crush on in eighth grade. And then at the next guy after that, and the next guy after that. And so wherever you can identify that cycle, and then we help you break free. But it's a small it's an investment of time. You go through like a season where you recognize it, you get accountability, you work through it. But on the other side is now you understand what real love looks like, what it sounds like, what it acts like, and you will no longer crave. If someone says real love is boring one more time, I'm gonna throw something, because that's the last thing I would say it is. It's not boring at all. In fact, I look back at Gumball Love and I'm like, that's what was boring. I thought it was high and great, but like when you have your true partner. And when I was researching the vasopressin just recently, again, just going through it, and I was thinking, this is what my husband was like. It was like he felt bonded. He wasn't afraid to tell me how he felt. It wasn't that much slower. I mean, I think he told me he loved me in 2 months. So it wasn't like, and I could feel it coming. He wasn't afraid to express it. There weren't ups and downs or spikes. It was steady. But steady isn't boring when you are falling in love with the love of your life. So I think it might be boring if you're like, well, he's nice and, I'm going to choose him because he's safe. Okay, that's boring. So I never coach a client. Okay, now you're going to have to marry the fat, ugly guy because he's safe. Because fat, ugly guys also are gumball guys. So this isn't about, just because he's not attractive doesn't mean he's not attention seeking. So that also is a weird thing that we've developed as women. Oh, just let's go for the guy that we feel sorry for because he's just going to be nice and obsess over you. It doesn't work like that either. So it's not about It's not about finding safety in somebody that you're not really in love with.
Well, it's
Or,
like any
yeah,
addiction, right? It's like, how am I gonna have fun with people if I don't drink? You know? I think
yeah,
that's a similar concept, but you stop drinking, you still figure you guess what? You still have a personality and you still, hopefully.
yeah,
But most people, I think it's that fear of like if I lose the butterflies and the chemistry and whatever it is, then it's gonna feel boring. But in reality, you really open up to the full potential of, in this case, a relationship, but if we're taking the drinking example to life, like to real life without, the sauce helping you along kind of a thing. Okay,
yeah,
so I could talk to you literally for a million years, but and we can do another one or 1,000 more.
yeah.
I think, I mean, this is just incredible information that you are the only one saying this that I've heard. And there's a lot of people that sort of pop up in reels and all this kind of stuff. You are the only one talking like this about relationships. And and I just want to point out that like we have relationships not just with our romantic partners, but with coworkers and friends and relatives and all that stuff. So can you apply this theory to all relationships?
Oh boy, can you ever. So
I figured you'd
get
say
ready.
that.
Yes, you can. And there are those people that you're not gonna, they're in your life forever. They're your parents, they're your siblings, your cousins, your whatever. Like there are people that, you can't walk away from. Not saying you would want to, but where people will say you have to have boundaries, and it's just like, ugh, how do you have boundaries? Like I think for most women, especially like me that got into this loop, boundaries was like, what are those? How do I even do it? It was like, it literally was this cryptic world that I just felt like I could never figure out. But this methodology really helped me because you might have gumball parents, you might have gumball siblings, you might have people that are a little bit more transactional, but keep in mind they're all on the spectrum, right? So this applies to everyone. It also applies at work. So let's say you have you realize, oh, my coworker is attention seeking. That is not the person you can tell your secret to, like that you might put in your 2 week notice or you're interviewing somewhere else. That person will not be able to resist the temptation of getting idolized by other coworkers because they have the juicy gossip. So it'll help you navigate in your at work or in your family relationships, and it helps you adjust your expectations with people. If you have a friend, you go to lunch, you talk to her, and she doesn't really ask about you, and it becomes this frustration, you might start to see, oh, she likes me giving her attention, but she doesn't have the bandwidth or the capacity to sit with me and just have intimacy. So you'll start to see intimacy differently. And intimacy is it often gets associated with sex, but let's just break it down to you will feel the most like yourself and even become more yourself with people you have intimacy. It's rare. People that you have intimacy with, it's not like you're going to see that on an everyday basis, but it's the people you can messy bun, no makeup, show up as you are and be fully heard and say whatever inappropriate thing, cuss, whatever comes out of your mouth, that person's opinion of you doesn't change at all. It doesn't matter how ugly or how great you look. They know you and they love you on your prettiest or ugliest day. That's where you can start to see, okay, this is where I have intimacy. So then there's versions of that in your family and your work. And so when you start to see, okay, this is somebody I have a real connection with, where this person I have to give dopamine, or they're priming me, they're putting in the quarter, and you feel it. You feel that prompt to give them attention versus just sit and have meaningful connection. And that differentiator as you go through this process is where you really start to see, okay, these are the people I really invest in. And these are the people that I start to look at differently. It doesn't mean you get rid of them. You just say, okay, this person has different capacity than the other. And, it gets more emotional as you look at parents or people that are closer to you, siblings, best friends. Those can be, tougher at times, but it it helps you stop blaming yourself for everything because you're not responsible for making him love you, making your parents do the things that they can't do. I mean, our parents and their generation, they didn't have books and podcasts and all of this stuff like our mother's generation. Now I'm probably too old to be saying that, but like, and the generation below me, like or above me rather, like our mothers and grandmothers will just say they grew up with the idea that they may not work, where we grew up thinking we're going to go to college and we're going to get a job. I mean, just think of that shift generationally is pretty massive. So everything around men and relationships, what our moms and grandmas knew, they couldn't teach this to us. And so they might still be stuck with that guy that they're giving gumballs to. And so they don't know, they're not going to be able to talk to you about this. And that can be frustrating. But we're creating a new movement where we're truly empowered and not just empowered to get the guy. So you look at even, and just like that, to this day, the focus is if you're single, you're still like the spinster. I mean, they're literally still stuck in that mindset.
Mhm.
And it's a tragedy, really, because Hollywood is still telling that story, which is making us feel bad about ourselves. But empowerment is not just having the guy by your side, it's being truly loved for who you are and having that partner that's going to love you just like with that true intimacy and see you and love you for who you are and not how you perform. So we're taking away the performance. You don't have to perform for love. You just by yourself, you are enough. And there is enough about you, enough complexity to have someone treat you like a treasure trove. And you will see that in your future husband. He will be like this treasure that you just continue to uncover. You'll grow, you'll travel together, you'll experience life together, and it never ends. So it's not like, oh, you found the guy and he's just safe and he's great. But no, it's like it's just the beginning, because when you have someone with real intimacy, it's like an ocean. It's just layer upon layer upon layer that will give you a lifetime of experiences with each other. So that's what's on the other side of this, of the process of working through it. It can be a little painful at first, but it's so worth it in the end.
Perfect. That is the perfect note to end on. Thank you so much.
Yay.
This was
Yeah, absolutely.
incredible. I will link your quiz and all your information in the show notes so people can get a hold of you and follow
Yeah.
you for more content because this is so important for everyone to know, to understand. And
Yes.
it really is like a new revolution kind of how we interact with each other.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was such an honor. Thank you, Luba.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you to Melissa for sharing her amazing insights. I know so many listeners will see themselves or someone they love in this conversation. If you want to learn more about Melissa's work, you can check out the links in the show notes. Remember, your emotional and physical health are deeply connected, and you deserve relationships, intimacy, and a life that supports your whole self. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please share with a friend, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, take care of your body and your heart.